Hey guys, Emily here. I just want to make a video to discuss something that's kind of been weighing on my mind a lot recently, um, and it was just easier to say it this way than to try and write it all out in a blog. I've kind of mentioned this in previous blog posts, but it's something I really wanted to tackle head on here and to share my story in the hopes that maybe it can impact you in the way that you see the world and hopefully help make a little bit of change a little bit at a time. I think it's a really challenging time in the world right now. We're really seeing society in a different light, and we're seeing our world, especially here in the U.S., in a very raw and real and vulnerable place, and in a vulnerable moment. And in really a pivotal one, a time of change, most certainly. And, after everything that's happened recently with the shooting in Parkland and other instances that have been going on for quite some time, probably, that we're finally just kind of seeing come to light, I think it just reiterates how important it is to be kind to one another. It's Ellen's line, but it resonates every day with me, and I think it is so important to us as a human race, that we really try and find the humanity in one another and to connect with that. Unfortunately, we're seeing so much of what's happening, so much anger and fear invading and infecting our schools. And, I was really reminded of this just the other day when my little sister's high school was under a threat, and thankfully her administration and the local police force there were very prompt in response to assess the possible threat, and determined it was not of harm to students, and responded in a very rapid and appropriate manner as much as they could. But it certainly stirred up a lot of feelings for a lot of people, and started a very large discussion that obviously is a part of the national discussion we're currently having. And I think something that has been weighing on me is just from my own experience growing up, in how people can treat you, and how often people are kind of left behind and in the shadows, and how now we're seeing that can turn into something violent, into something tragic, into something that no kid should have to experience. Being someone who was pretty heavily bullied most of their life, it resonates with me very deeply. It hurts me to see these kids hurting in the way that they are, to have to get to the point where we're hurting themselves or hurting others as their only option out. They should never have to feel that way. They should know it does get better, and hopefully maybe somebody will see this and realize it does, because I'm proof. As hard as it is for me to say, and as hard as it will be for many people I know to accept, it was the target of a lot of bullying growing up. Unfortunately, everything that you could be doing to be bullied, I was doing unconsciously, because that was just who I was. I was the new kid. I had glasses, I had crooked teeth, and later had braces. I was a nerd, I was a theater geek, I was adopted. Basically everything that you could be picked on for in a classic 90s high school rom-com was me entirely. I was the epitome of the kid you bullied. Everything apparently just happened to congregate in me. And the thing was, I never really made that correlation until much later in life, because when you're in that moment, all you know is that you're being picked on, and all you know is that you want it to stop, and you don't know why you're being picked on. Um, and, for me, I got to go home and I was accepted for who I was. I was never belittled or put down by my family for my dreams or what I was trying to achieve. They encouraged me 100%. And it wasn't until much later in life that I realized that not everybody probably had that. And I realized that was probably pretty rare. The level of freedom and empowerment that my parents gave me being in small town Iowa was probably pretty rare. And that I was very lucky and very blessed to have that, which I obviously now see. But back then, all I knew was that I had a happy childhood. I might have had nicer clothes and a decent sized house, but, I was happy and I was doing the things that I wanted to do and the things I loved. I didn't realize that not everybody else had a happy childhood and had that home life. Whatever it might have been, for other people. I didn't realize that not everybody lived the kind of life I did. And so it never occurred to me that people might also be picking on me because I had the things that they didn't have and that they wanted, and that they saw something in me that they didn't like because they didn't have it, and so therefore I couldn't have it either. Bullies are very good at taking something you love about yourself and making you hate it. That's kind of their premise and their purpose, and that's what they're very good at. And that's what I experienced a lot of, was because of the things I loved, was because of who I was being picked on. And I was a kid with a big personality and probably pretty strong opinions, and I'm sure that rubbed some people the wrong way. To me, I didn't realize that I was making myself a target, or that I might be offending anybody if I did. Because I was never told by anybody, like an adult, that what I was doing was wrong. Because my parents were just very supportive of everything I did, and they never pushed me to do anything I didn't want to do. I was the kid who was always dreaming big. And I think that also came from I never really feel like I fit in to where I was and into the environment I was in growing up in small town Iowa. I never really feel like I fit in. And that's okay. I don't know that I needed to. I think it probably would have made things easier, but I can see, looking back, having been in that experience, how a young kid could go from being, a kid being bullied to someone who's trying to hurt others, in whatever manner that is, whether they're using a gun or a knife or, their own words, whatever it might be. I think the thing to realize, though, that most people who haven't been bullied can't understand is that it's not just one thing that sets somebody off. It's a multitude of things. The domino effect. It's not a light switch that just goes on overnight. It's all little things that pile up. And for me, they turned something I love about myself into something that I hated. I didn't want to go to school. And I was somebody who loved school. I was the nerd. And they made me not want to go to school. And I was at the very dawn of what we would now call cyberbullying. But before it was even considered a thing. Before it was even a thought. That was back when I was on MSN Messenger, and so it was at the very beginning of when people could get to you outside of the school walls. So I can't imagine what kids are going through these days, having social media and the internet and having access to everybody all the time. I can't fathom that now, and so to those of you young kids out there, don't listen to anybody when they tell you that it was harder for them that older generations say it was harder for them than it is for you. It is way harder to be a kid these days than it was for them, because they didn't have to deal with that. They got to leave the school walls and go home and didn't have to deal with it. Now there is no escape, and that changes the game. And I think it just also accentuates how easy it is, how much easier it is to be mean, to be kind. Somehow our society has found it so much easier to tear somebody down than to build somebody up. And I don't know when that switch happened. I know it's certainly been a part of our society for much longer than I've been around. Because I remember my dad looking at me, back at the height of when I was being bullied. And he knew, he could tell, he could see it in me. And I could see he hurt for me, but at the same time, he couldn't do anything about it. And all he could say to me was, kids are cruel, they suck. And that was all he could do for me to which was not any comfort, obviously, for me then, because all I wanted to do was stop. But, my God, I mean, can you imagine kids these days? So know that I understand, I feel for you, and don't let anybody tell you that your suffering or your pain isn't valid or doesn't matter, because I promise you it does. Because I'm sure there's people that I grew up with looking at this video who are shaking their heads, laughing at me, saying, oh, she didn't have it so bad, and oh, she should get over it. And I have, and because it has gotten better, and because I'm so much happier with who I am now, and I'm still doing things that they can't even fathom to be doing. I'm living my life the way that I want to live it, on my terms. And I'm very proud of that. I've worked very, very hard to get to this point, to show those people that they couldn't break me, and that their opinion really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They're really an afterthought at this point. But it's taken me a long time to get there, and it didn't come overnight. It was a lot of work, and I had to kind of hit rock bottom with a lot of things before that happened, And so I think the biggest thing that I would say is that we just need to be kind to one another. Once again, it needs to be the focus, It doesn't take but a minute to tell somebody hello, ask them how they're doing, and ask them what you could do for them today to make their day better. That's all it takes, guys. It's really not that hard. Because at the end of the day, we're all the same, and we all have this one life, and the things that you do and say, they matter. Don't think that they don't. Your words have meaning and they matter, so don't throw them around. Don't just say them without thinking, because they could impact somebody more than you know. You never know what somebody else is going through, and you never know if what you're saying could help them or hurt them. And so, because these kids that these young people that we're seeing on the media and on the news who are taking such a violent turn, whether it's to take their own lives or to hurt others, it hurts my heart, because I know what they're going through, and I know that it could have been avoided, because those kids, they're only getting to that point because of one of two things. Either they want to finally be seen and heard, or they just want it to stop. And those are both very dangerous combinations that I don't think anybody can fathom the lengths that people will go to accomplish either of those goals. And so all it takes is a hi, a hello, a smile, how's it going? How you doing? It really, it's not that hard. And yet somehow we as a society have let kids think it's easier to be mean than to be kind. And that just baffles me. And I don't know that I'll ever understand that, because I was a kid who experienced it. And I was bullied for things that were out of my control. Things that I couldn't change about myself, because if I did, that would just be letting them win. And it was things that happened to me that I couldn't control, that I was being bullied for, and being singled out for and picked on for. So I look at the world and I don't know what to do. I don't know what the correct response is to everything that's been going on, but all I know is that if we learn anything from this, it's to live our life in service to others and in charity, and to just, be your most authentic self, and to not let anybody tell you any differently, and to not be afraid. I think that's the biggest thing that I can impart, because I'm proof that it does get better, and that at the end of the day, yes, being bullied changed me fundamentally in how I view the world, but it also made me much stronger. It made me much more fierce and independent, and it made me work harder, and it made me tougher, because I didn't have anybody helping me through it. I didn't have anybody standing up for me. Even the people that were my friends weren't standing up for me. I had to do that on my own. I had to decide what my reaction was going to be. I could only control my reaction. I couldn't control anybody else's actions or their reactions. I can only control myself and how I approach the situation. And so I chose the best way I could in those moments, growing up, and I've let it, inspire me to do more and to do better in my life going forward, and to realize that I am so much more than what those people thought of me, and I'm so much more than what those people didn't think of me. So I just hope that we as a society can learn and can grow, and can understand that all it takes is a little kindness for people to be safe, for kids to be able to walk into their school and know that they'll be able to walk out at the end of the day. And that's all it takes. And I just hope that one day we can all see that, the world is better when we all work together, that we're all human at the end of the day, and that we shouldn't leave a legacy of cruelty, but instead one of kindness. I mean, I would die if my children left a legacy of, oh, kids are cruel. I don't know how I would live with that. So I hope that we can finally change the game. Our generation, these young Gen Zers and the millennials who have been through it, and who've seen all of this, and who've never known peace in their time, and I don't know that we'll ever know it going forward, but God, we gotta try. And so as someone who's seen that kind of cruelty from their peers, who's lived through it, who's survived it, who's come out stronger for it, don't give up. It gets better. It's not the end of the world. High school's only 400 days, or 700 days. It's not life, and it's not your whole life. There's so much more out there, and you can be and do whatever you want to be and do. And I just encourage everybody to chase their dreams, even if they're too big, even if it makes you don't fit, it makes things not fit. If you don't fit in because of it, it doesn't matter, because you're going to find where you fit in, and you're going to find where you can chase those dreams freely. So you just got to hold on a little longer. So I hope that this has helped somebody. I hope me sharing my story has helped even one person, because then it'll be worth it. So I leave you with so much love and so much heart for this world and what we could be, and I hope we can make it happen. Thanks, guys.